Get Out of Your Head by Jennie Allen. Chapter 3. Spiraling Out. On my way back to my parents' home from that speaking engagement in Little Rock, I called Zach. He and I had been in an argument before I left town to go speak. About what? I don't remember, but I do remember my first words to him after he accepted my call were, "Hey babe, fight's over, okay?" While I had him on the phone, I began peppering him with questions. How are our finances? Are we at odds with anyone? How are the kids? I actually used the phrase, circle the wagons, as in, we need to circle the wagons, Zach. What? Was our herd of cattle in danger? The truth was, I didn't know where the danger might be, and I didn't exactly want to find out. Why are you worried, Jennie? He asked. My anxiety was showing. I'm sure he was wondering, what went down at that sweet Baptist church? I told him the story, and my never overly dramatic husband took me very seriously. Over the phone that night, we walked through all the parts of our lives that were within our control and made sure that there wasn't an obvious place for us to be attacked. We relaxed a little. But starting that night, immediately after I experienced such absolute certainty of my faith, every night without fail, I'd wake at 3 a.m. in a momentary panic. Ugh, 3 o'clock again. It's not that I'm not accustomed to waking in the middle of the night. What woman who has raised children isn't? But this time the wakefulness was different. My mind was racing and it terrified me. I would circle for hours in the middle of the night. It started with small thoughts and fears, wondering whether I was behind on laundry, worrying about one of my kids, but it would quickly move to bigger fears. Is God real? I was spending my life for him, and that doubt suggested a terrifying possibility. I was wasting my life. In the dark, alone, in the quiet, I would push it away, but it seemed to yo-yo back into my brain, a nagging question I couldn't shake. Ironically, my middle name is Faith, yet mine seemed to be eroding. Bible study teacher Beth Morse, a self-described former pit dweller, has said that there are 3 kinds of pits: the kind we jump into, the kind we accidentally slip into, and the kind we're thrown into. This pit was the latter. I had been thrown in. The question that haunted me during those sleepless nights was how on earth to get out. I've known people who at some point in their lives began to doubt their career choices, or they doubt whether they married the right person, or they doubt their purpose in life. But what I was doubting went right to the core of who I was. I doubted the existence of God. Lying awake in my silent, too dark bedroom each night, I doubted whether God was real. If he was, did he really see me? Did he really love me? Did he care? What was I thinking? Of course God cared. Didn't he? When I had the faith I'd proclaimed with sincere fervor seeped right out of me. Who'd taken it? Where had it gone? Would I ever get it back? Suddenly, I was filled with doubt. Truthfully, it wasn't sudden. It was slow, subtle, almost imperceptible, growing slightly each night as I lay there in the dark. My usually cheerful and optimistic demeanor was replaced by a lingering uneasiness. None of the methods I'd been taught over the course of my life about getting out of a funk were working. I was still working out and being productive at work and attending church, but my optimism was captured by a real, full-on war for my mind. I was being pulled under as these thoughts of doubt continued their relentless assault. Eventually, what began in the night slipped into the daylight. More and more, I wondered whether it was all true. But in the daytime, plenty of distractions exist. Grabbing distractions. Our brains are excellent at that. And when it came to the moments I needed faith, I would choose it. I'd lean hard on the decades of my story with God until I started to notice my passion eroding. My spiraling thoughts were dragging me into exhaustion. Doubt steals hope. And with no hope, everything that matters doesn't feel as important anymore. Have you ever been confronted with something so hard or heavy that it made you question everything you believed? I've since recognized that the enemy was at work. But in the midst of the downward spiral, I couldn't see it. My thoughts seemed to have control over me instead of the other way around. Looking back, I wish I could talk to myself, shake myself out of the toxic spiral I was in. There was a way out, and if you're in a small spiral or an all-out tailspin right now, I promise there is hope. I'm helpless. I'm worthless. I'm unlovable. There in bed, 3 a.m. attack after 3 a.m. attack. I'd somehow fallen prey to believing all 3. Everything I believed before meant nothing. God meant nothing. Life meant nothing. I was helpless because I was nothing. I was worthless because I was nothing. I was unlovable because who loves nothing? The danger of toxic thinking is it produces an alternate reality, one in which distorted reasoning actually seems to make sense. I thought about all the hard I had walked through in recent years. I'd watched one of my best friends suffer a series of massive strokes while also suffering an agonizing divorce. Watched my sister Katie's world and marriage fall apart. Endured wild challenges surrounding the adoption of our son Cooper from Rwanda. Faced an onslaught of criticism from leaders I respect as I mustered the strength to launch an organization and lead a team for the first time. Watched my husband Zach go through a terrifying bout with depression. The list went on. Had my confidence in God's goodness been misplaced all this time? In the wee hours of the morning, I began to hypothesize about where my life was headed. Had I given my life to a meaningless mission? Had all my effort and passion been for nothing? Everything at once seemed so true and vital seemed to be fading away. Around this time, my family went to see the latest Avengers movie, Infinity War. The movie was out, had been out long enough that I don't feel bad about this spoiler. In the end, some of my favorite superheroes just vanish, crumbling to ash and blowing away as if they'd never been there, as if they'd never existed at all, as if their lives meant nothing. I sat in that theater tormented by the idea that this was my destiny too. Whatever fulfillment I'd experienced, whatever impact I'd known, all of it was bound for vaporization. Nothing would matter in the end. I would be in the dark, in a grave. The end. No God, no rescue. I was nothing. My life meant nothing. Nothing mattered now. If there is no God, then who cares about anything? I told you it was going to get dark. For 18 months straight, more than 500 days, this is what I thought. Until I learned to think differently about my thoughts. Until I remembered I had a choice. This is the end of chapter 3.